Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Monroe Brown. I'm the director of the Wisconsin Office of Outdoor Recreation. It's my honor to be here today with our esteemed panel to host the Outdoor Recreation Panel, where we will discuss and reflect Wisconsin's Office of Outdoor Recreation and share their vision for how it will continue to uplift the tourism economy, drive economic development, and support healthy lifestyles and resources in Wisconsin, even as other states race to catch up. With me is Bob Burns. Bob's a 23-year bicycle industry veteran who founded Trek's legal department in 1995 and served as Trek's vice president and general counsel until the fall of 2018. Bob currently serves as the board chair for the Wisconsin Bike Federation. Bob is a past recipient of the Bicycle Retailers Brainy Award for Outstanding Bicycle Industry Service and has served on many industry organizations in different capacities over the years, such as Dream Bikes, People for Bikes, NICA, and the BPSA. Bob has been active on the national, international, and local levels on such issues as model legislation for e-bikes, trade and tariff issues. In addition to serving as Trek's general counsel, Bob helped found B-Cycle and served as B-Cycle's president for 10 years. B-Cycle has grown to become the country's largest provider of public bike share systems and has launched in over 52 cities and provided over 20 million rides. Also joining us is Lindsay Davis. Lindsay is the acting executive director of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, the nation's leading coalition of recreation trade associations supporting over 110,000 businesses and the full breadth of the $788 billion recreation economy. Chris Ruckdaschel serves as the executive director of the Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce. His responsibilities include directing all activities of the chamber, including marketing, event execution, economic development, advocacy, membership, communication, and continuing education for the membership. Prior to joining the Hayward Chamber, Chris was an associate director for the NCAA in Indianapolis and equal employment opportunity specialist at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. Chris loves the endless outdoor recreation opportunities that the Hayward Lakes area offers, including mountain biking, snowmobiling, boating, kayaking, golfing, fishing, and is determined to make time for more cross-country skiing and simply soaking in the beauty of the Wisconsin North Woods. Sharon Scott is the Senior Director, Brand Management and Product Development for Johnson Outdoors Watercraft. She leads the marketing and product teams for Old Town, Ocean Kayak, and Carlisle water sports activities. She has focused on the outdoor industry for 20 years in leadership positions for both retailers and suppliers. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Arizona and a mini MBA certificate in digital marketing from Rutgers. She is passionate about building great teams and great products that help people enjoy the natural beauty and awe of the outdoors. She's an avid hiker, camper, and kayaker, and an enthusiastic novel angler. So welcome. I appreciate your time being here today. We'll kick off the panel with a brief introduction to the Office of the Outdoor Recreation. As you know, Wisconsin's natural assets abound, with nearly half of the state covered by forests. More than 15,000 inland lakes, 2 Great Lakes, 43,000 miles of river, 2 national scenic trails, and so much more. The opportunities to participate in outdoor recreation are endless. And for all those reasons, the outdoors has long been a critical component of our tourism offering. In fact, the outdoors is consistently a top reason for visiting Wisconsin. Last year, the office released a first-of-its-kind report, an outdoor recreation economic impact report produced by Headwaters Economics, an independent bipartisan nonprofit research firm. The report shows the sizable economic industry and that we've all long understood. $1 in every $40 generated in Wisconsin is from outdoor recreation related activities, and this adds up to 2.2% of the gross domestic product. Outdoor recreation also creates 93,000 jobs in the state. Given that, what I'd like to do is talk about the national framework and then work our way back to the state level. Lindsay, we know that pre-COVID, 50% of Americans were getting outdoors. This summer, the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable survey results showed that more than 89% of Americans were getting outdoors, and about 30% of those were brand new outdoorists. Can you explain how this new group of outdoorists will affect infrastructure, policy, and trends in the outdoors?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me this morning. Wisconsin is one of my favorite recreation states. I grew up fishing there, so I'm happy to be with you guys today. And yeah, it's just been an amazing year for recreation. If you've gone outside, gone to trailhead, tried to buy any piece of gear, especially fishing and RV equipment, you know it's just been slammed, and we've seen really record-breaking trends across the industry in participation, sales, even amidst the shutdowns and manufacturing challenges. So we're really thrilled with the trends that we're seeing, and it pairs well with the last couple of years, especially with ORR's focus and us coming together as a coalition to represent the full breadth of the recreation community, our ability to really measure the size and scale and impact of the recreation economy. So over the years, we've been working really closely with the BEA to support getting those state numbers, like you mentioned, Mary, and also the national numbers, which prove that we're just this huge economic driver with $788 billion and 2.1% of the GDP, supporting 5.2 million American jobs. So we kind of have this perfect storm of all that participation, our real weight being recognized, and influence and seat at the table being established, combined to have huge legislative wins happening, like the Great American Outdoors Act last year, especially at a time when really nothing else was getting through Congress. We saw this big bipartisan effort to get more funding to the infrastructure that supports the recreation economy and public lands, and our blue and green with lands and waters addressed. So we have billions of dollars now coming down the pipe over the next 5 years through GAOA that's going to address the maintenance backlog on public lands and focus on really getting us that 21st century recreation infrastructure to support this new wave of people getting outside and allow us to really evolve and continue to be the economic driver that we are. So we're really thrilled about the conditions of the recreation economy right now. I think everything is really teed up to have us be able to advocate for continued investment in our very important sector.
Lindsay, you muted.
Oh, that was all.
There. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Bob, would you mind following up on what you're seeing nationally from People for Bikes or IMBA or NICA?
Yeah, I would say that Trek's information is very similar to Lindsay's research. Last April, back when this whole thing began, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. Trek commissioned a survey through Engine Insights, which found that 21% of respondents who own a bike have been riding more during the pandemic. I think we've all seen that anecdotally. When this thing began in March, none of us really knew what was going to happen. And sitting in my home office, slowly I started to see more and more people, neighbors, ride by on bicycles that I hadn't seen on bicycles in a really long time. I would say in some sectors, Rails to Trails has a nationwide system of bike counters. And some of the counters on those trails are up 200% year over year. So just like people have gone outside to go hunting and fishing and hiking and boating, they've gone outside to ride their bikes. And there are really three main groups of cycling people that we've been able to identify. The first are existing enthusiasts. They generally have been riding their bikes anyway. They have high-end bikes. They've had more time during the pandemic, and they went outside in droves. The second and maybe more important group is family cyclists who ride casually for recreation. We've seen a big increase in families coming into bike shops and looking for hybrid bicycles, helmets, accessories, and those people are looking for safe places to ride and are really leveraging Wisconsin's extensive trail network. And the third, which we see more in urban areas, are people who are riding to get to and from work, principally because they have time and they don't want to drive their car, but mostly to stay out of transit because of the perception of risk with respect to transit. The other thing that we've seen, I think, that's really helped boost cycling in Wisconsin and nationwide is some communities, as people have gone outside in larger numbers and as traffic has gone down during the pandemic, have dedicated parts of existing roadways and existing infrastructure for bike and pedestrian use during the pandemic. Some cities are talking about taking some of that rededicated space and making it permanent so that people have safe places to walk and to ride. Nationally, Trek works with organizations like People for Bikes, IMBA, and NICA, the National Interscholastic Cycling League, which is focused on getting more kids on bikes. We're active in Wisconsin and in Washington, D.C. To try and get funding to build safe places to ride. So very similar experience on the cycling side.
Thank you, Bob. You know, the outdoor industry is working to address supply chain impacts. Since the summer of 2020, we saw this record-breaking year, as Bob just spoke to. Sharon, would you mind speaking to the trends, sales forecasting, or impacts that have forced the changes for 2021 and the 2022 season?
Sure, Mary. Thank you. Yes, it's been quite a challenge and opportunity for us to improve some of our processes and lean into a growth mindset to how do we best fulfill all the needs and the very high demand that our customers and consumers are having for our canoes and kayaks and accessories in there. We've been deeply engaged at Old Town and Ocean Kayak to safely meet increased demand. We manufacture in Maine using largely American parts, and that helps a good bit. But what it's really about for us is it's about the people. Our people are our secret sauce to success at Johnson Outdoors, and everyone has stepped up their creative thinking, long-range planning, efficiency improvements, communication to across the whole supply chain, from end users to first level part suppliers domestically and overseas to do our best to meet demand. We've been able to thankfully adjust our processes to try to meet the needs of the consumers, whether they're similar to Bob's assessment of cyclists, whether you're a recreational paddler or a family going on a multi-day camping trip, or even out and about tournament fishing from one of our kayaks in there. So it's been an excellent example of resiliency and communication, and it will continue to be an opportunity to stretch those wings for the next year and a half from everything we're seeing.
Right, definitely. Thank you, Sharon. I really appreciate what you have to say about your people, and that being the secret sauce, and true sustainability comes from those teams that you love creating. So that will bode well. Thank you for sharing that. Chris, do you want to comment a little bit on the trends you're seeing on the ground right in Hayward?
Yeah, for those that may not be aware, we're up here in the northwest corner of the state. And, outdoor recreation is kind of our bread and butter to begin with. And that's long been the case. So I think the way that we've looked at it, like so many adverse situations in life, the good news is there can be contrasting, positive outcomes that happen as a very result of the situation. And I tell you what, we've experienced that. I think we all agree we never want to go through a pandemic, of course, again. We never want to see that again, if at all possible. But we have been very fortunate in a vacation land area like us anyway, that we have long been able to offer the very type of experiences and activities that people tend to enjoy. even in the best of times. But we certainly have seen here in Hayward that on the ground that it's been exponentially ratcheted up in terms of our visitors, people partaking in all of these different activities and attractions, frankly, as a result of the pandemic. And that's a positive silver lining that we've seen. You know, up here from a marketing standpoint in a Chamber of Commerce, we've long believed in kind of a strengths-based marketing approach, which is a real simple concept. You simply focus on what you already have, what your strengths already are, and emphasize those and accentuate those. So, I mean, that's, again, something we practice anyway. And conversely, we don't want to spend as much time or too much time and energy and resources focusing on what we don't have. You know, ironically, I'd say over the past year, we probably actually have focused more than normal on what we don't have. You know, things like crowded spaces or, you know, lots of people in small environments. We've tried to remind folks of that too in this case. But obviously the environment we found ourselves in has made an area like ours just that much more appealing. And, you know, we've got, again, our area is hundreds of lakes, you know, big and small, right here in our immediate area, you know, offers water recreation, you know, fishing, boating, just the beautiful serenity, you know, everything from mountain biking to kayaking, tubing, ATVing, snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, all of those things. I think virtually without exception, we have actually seen an increase in participation. So, and that's crossing, you know, the silent sports, the motor sports, you know, up here, you know, shopping is a great, safe outdoor venture in many cases. You know, we've got a very quaint, you know, downtown here, and that's offered a nice contrast as well to kind of some of the bigger box stores, is for folks to come to smaller areas to frequent some of the smaller boutique type of stores as well. So we've seen it in that area too, because, you know, shopping is an activity as well. So you combine all of that, it stands to reason why people have flocked to our area. Again, we're fortunate that people come here anyway and visit us, but it's all just been accentuated that much further, you know, in the times that we find ourselves in. And, you know, certainly our hope and also our belief is that even once we're through and on the other side of the pandemic, particularly the folks, the newfound folks in the outdoor recreation industry, you know, are going to reflect and say, you know what, boy, I really like that. I like those experiences that I had. I'm going to keep doing those things. We hope there's not a rollback. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I don't think we certainly hope there will not be, because, you know, outdoor recreation has so many benefits, you know, physical, mental, and in so many different ways that we just think out of necessity, it's introduced some folks to all the great stuff that's out there.
Right. That's great. I love too how you talked also about, you know, there's a book about called Strength Finder. So you're talking about the strength of marketing, and Sharon's talking about the strength of people, but that still all relates to playing onto the strengths that you have related to, you know, people who are visiting and experiencing your areas. As you all know, the Office of Outdoor Recreation has been fully staffed for a year. And we're really excited about, you know, the work that we've been able to accomplish and what is coming forward. Would you mind explaining your connection and how that office has affected your work? Sharon, do you want to kick off maybe speaking about the production that we participated in?
Sure. Thanks, Mary. You know, it's been a real pleasure working with you in the office. Theoretically, it is a give and a get for us. Right, we were able to partner for a Travel Wisconsin photo shoot last year and provide some kayaks and paddles and PFDs. And I know we also work with Bending Branches up a little north of us as well on some of the paddles and pieces like that. And for us, that's a real win-win, right? We win by having the additional exposure of our brands to people who are just opening their eyes to the natural wonder and beauty and travel opportunities, whether they're coming from out of state or within the state. And then for our 100+ Wisconsin-based employees, it's also just such a moment of pride whenever we see our products out there. We all get a real kick of seeing someone if we're on the bank fishing and someone's in a bass boat with a Minn Kota motor, we're like, that's my company, right? Whether it's my division or not is less important. So for our 100 plus Wisconsin employees who get to see, let's just say, a beautiful shot on one of our many lakes or rivers that you took in there, and like, hey, that's an Old Town boat, that's an ocean boat, that's my company. It really helps
Right.
inspire our employees to discover more of our home state and to get out there more. And then the other side where we really benefit is the events like this, and being able to participate in the tourism conference and getting the updates on email of some of the best practices and what our communities are doing, and participating in the webinar. So it's been a really strong and positive thing for us since the establishment of the office, and we look forward to continued opportunities to help each other grow.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your guidance and your support, Sharon. Bob, do you want to speak a little bit to the connections with the industry, how the success of the economic impact report and kind of what you've seen from that?
Well, first I want to comment on Sharon's comment about looking at every boat that goes by and say, hey, that's one of our boats. I do the exact same thing with bicycles. I look at every bike that goes by to see if it's a Trek, and I look at every helmet that rides by to see if it's a Bontrager. So I can definitely relate to that. I will tell you that I was thinking how the timing of this office, the formation of this office, when it came together, given the pandemic, I mean, it couldn't have been scripted better, because all of a sudden, as we're talking about, everybody in Wisconsin has time and reason to get outside and reconnect with the outside. And while I love to ride my bike a lot, I also like to do other things outside. I like to hike, I like to fish, I like to get out in a boat, I like to canoe, I like to ski, I like to do a lot of things. And one of the things that I think that the Office for Outdoor Recreation can do and do well is create that tent where, beginning with the industry, everyone in the industry is under that tent talking to one another, because I think we can accomplish so much more together than we do individually. We accomplish a lot individually, but you know, many of us engage in many of these activities, and I really think we should be working together to protect, build, and enhance outdoor recreation activities and industry in Wisconsin. We know from the study that OREC commissioned and recently published that outdoor recreation is big business in Wisconsin. But we also know just how important outdoor recreation is to the physical and mental well-being of Wisconsin residents. And I think we as an industry share a responsibility to make sure that we're all working together and not against one another to make those opportunities for Wisconsin residents and Wisconsin visitors as multifaceted and as inclusive as possible.
That's fantastic. I love it. That's part of the vision, is that inclusivity. Thank you for articulating that. One trend that we're seeing is that we saw from the University of Utah study about Zoom towns, and the highest factor in determining those Zoom towns is what the outdoor recreation piece is of those communities, who are seeing people move at a time when they can live and work anywhere. Lindsay, would you speak to this trend and how this will positively impact rural communities?
Sure. And as someone who's based in Utah, who's navigating the housing market right now, I can tell you this is a real problem. But yeah, the pandemic has really demonstrated how much people value outdoor recreation, not just with their habits, but also with their purchasing power. So it's leading to some real challenging housing trends and high profile outdoor recreation destinations. There's some opportunities that are on the table with this timing. Smaller towns that are just leaning into recreation economies can plan proactively to capture the best aspects of building outdoor recreation in a way that maintains the culture that they have today. And this has been a focal point of OR's work through our efforts in rural development for recreation economies, where we've put together some toolkits and resources around this topic, and have interviewed just dozens of stakeholders from across the country, and identified kind of early collecting visioning around issues is critically important. So successful towns and regions bring together community stakeholders to talk about potential issues, including traffic management, housing affordability, wildlife impacts, new business development, schools, healthcare services, basic infrastructure, connectivity, large landscape planning, and community character as just being some of the main things that are going to come up. So the shared perspective is if these things are raised proactively rather than reactively, they can really have a positive impact on that visitation. So the Colorado Tourism Roadmap and Oregon Tourism Studios are great examples of this collective visioning process. And I think additionally, towns want to be sure that their entire value chain is bought in and aware of the opportunity posed by outdoor recreation to ensure that communities capture economic activity at every juncture. So as one federal funder that we interviewed wrote about considering which towns to provide grants, she wrote, if folks go to trails and camp, but bring their own food and only buy gas, that has zero impact on the local economy. We want someone to be able to get off the trail and have an opportunity to spend money on music, arts and crafts, etc., so they can stay a day or two and really invest in the visit. That means that the whole vision must be considered. Make sure the trails connect to the overall quality of the visit. If you can get people off the trail right into downtown to buy lunch, visit a local outfitter, bring friends along and come back and spend several days and nights on the trail, that sells it for us. So it's really about how recreation can be an economic driver, and help these rural communities reorient themselves around sustainable industries rather than some of the boom and bust cycles that we've seen in the extractive industries. So it sounds like there's already been a ton of work shared about Headwaters economics, but some of their great stats around counties with recreation economies, they're more likely to grow and attract new residents, and have faster growing wages than non-recreation counties. They're seeing faster growth in earnings per job on average than non, and they're seeing growth by about 1.3 people per thousand, rather than a loss of about 20 people per thousand. And they're also seeing earnings grow about 6 times faster. So just huge potential here. I think if there's planning and a lot of resource and attention kind of to the proactive side of things. And at the same time, the growth definitely needs to be paired with proper affordable housing policies to ensure current residents aren't priced out. But overall, I think with some of the new resources that are available both through ORR and on the federal side, communities can really pull together to take advantage of this.
That's great. Thank you, Lindsay. Those were some amazing stats. Chris, what are you seeing in Hayward? You're seeing some people move to Hayward for this very Zoom town reasoning, aren't you?
Yeah, you know, if you talk to our realtors, our real estate market has boomed, both in number of sales and real estate values. You know, all of that has been impacted in a pretty great way. Even to the point that, you know, our inventory, frankly, at this point is pretty low. It's kind of what Lindsay alluded to. It, you know, it could actually be tough going for a period of time if you're looking for, you know, a place in a destination like this. So it's what it also has highlighted probably even more in a rural area like ours. You know, sometimes the Achilles heel can still be broadband access in some areas. We've got areas that it's wonderful, it's great. We've got other areas that it is needed yet. So it's highlighted that and put even more pressure there. That I think that's going to be important in the future too. That's going to kind of be the 1-2 step that, even though rural areas like ours are very desirable and are set to gain even more full-time population, that's an important component, you know, as well, with broadband essentially being the, you know, the electrification of our times. But we're absolutely seeing that. It's a period of time we all would agree that people are literally reevaluating their lives, you know, not only where they want to visit and where they want to vacation to, but where they want to live. And we have seen that literally with families that are relocating here. In some cases, it might have been previous second homeowners that have now made this their primary home. In other cases, it's been people purchasing homes from outside of this area. And in some cases, living here, let me say full-time temporarily, maybe with intentions of at some point in time feeling it out and maybe not making a permanent residence. But we're also glad to say we've had people that are and have made the decision to make an area like ours their permanent residence. And in this increasingly geographically neutral world in terms of where you can work from, you know, as long as you have that laptop and that adequate connection, you know, folks are, I think, more than ever before asking themselves the question, you know what, if I can work from anywhere, why wouldn't it be where we like to spend our time and our vacation and where we enjoy life the most? So it's
Right.
areas like ours obviously stand to, you know, to benefit from that. You know, not that we don't want to become big urban areas. That's the uniqueness to us. And I don't think we threaten to do that. But people with those second homes, for example, that may have spent the equivalent of a month a year in this area, you know, maybe that's now 3 months, 4 months. Some of those that was a month before or 3 weeks before, now it's permanent. So that's definitely happening. And, you know, it's a great opportunity for our state. We're such a diverse state, have so much to offer in terms of outdoor recreation. And, you know, in our area, we've always prided ourselves on world-class events as well. You know, folks have probably heard of things like the American Birkebiner. We've got an Honor of the Earth powwow, the Lumberjack World Championships. We've got a Muskie Festival that's in our 71st year, Shawamagon Mountain Bike Festival. Those things have been great drivers in the past to introduce folks to an area like ours. And we're really, really looking forward to all those things coming back. We truly are. But that's another thing I think the last year has proven. I think we already knew it, but it's proven and it's bared that out that, you know, even short of those types of things, the outdoor industry and the everyday type of activities and experiences can stand on their own. And that's one thing that's been important to us for the Hayward area is, hey, come for our world-class events, but you can come any other day of the year too, even when those events aren't going on, and you're going to find awesome and fun things to do in a safe environment. And that has certainly been proven, you know, over the last 12 months, because people have come even in the absence of, you know, with virtually all events or most events anyway being canceled. So it is further highlighted, I think, the importance of outdoor recreation in people's lives. And that's been great to see. I think it's a very healthy thing for our society, as well as, you know, having a positive economic impact for, you know, these areas, you know, such as that we can offer.
Right, right. Yeah. And you're speaking to the idea of participating in something that isn't an event, which is participating in the outdoors too, and going to the places that have the infrastructure in which to do that, which I think is a really good point. One thing I wanted to talk about next is we're talking about the new outdoorists. 30% of people participating are maybe new to the outdoors. And we're talking about being invitational. And so what can we do about share the trail ethics, leave no trace? How can we work together with the office to be sure we're properly educating people? And maybe what are some examples you're seeing? Sharon, do you want to kick us off and then we'll go to Chris and Lindsay?
Sure, thanks, Mary. Outdoor ethics and safety in the outdoors they're essential to growing participation, and not just participation, but enthusiastic participation and retention of new outdoorists for being outside. I personally I'm a Leave No Trace trainer, took the 3-day class with some traveling trainers probably almost 20 years ago at this point now, and it's in addition to essential for the growth and sustainability of our businesses and communities. It feels a little odd saying it this way, but one of the best approaches that we have to that kind of outreach is digitally, to be very digitally focused, because people are starting all of their journeys online, right? Whether it's from their phone or their computer or their tablet, they're doing their research where should I go? How do I do this? How do I fish from a kayak? What do I need to be
Right.
safe going out on Lake Michigan versus on Big Muskego, right? There's all those differences in there, and so we're really heavily focused on sharing that digital information. We have a team of content folks, one we call brand evangelists, whose job is to really be out there listening to our communities and putting out content that's going to help them engage with these activities. And we feel confident that when you get further engaged in these activities, you're going to choose our crafts because of the quality and value proposition we have. And that runs everything from, we tend to go in little cycles. And so last year we did a multi-part series, including culminating in a pledge to wear your life vest campaign. We know that very few people who drown are wearing a vest, right? And so to enhance the safety and enjoyment in the future, we encouraged all of our communities on social media to pledge to wear their life vest, not just have it on the boat. In January, we did a series on fitness, how to stay fit and get ready for kayak season, right? And how to, people are not going to a gym. Lifting some of our fishing kayaks is actually quite a good workout, and engaging with those.
Right.
So we talk a lot about best practices and to share tools across the outdoor recreation community to have best practices in there. And I think the main thing that we need to do is focus on being welcoming and open to all and everybody, and let ethics do some of the speaking for themselves without preaching or talking down to people. No one really prefers that. They're going outside to have fun, right? And so we have to make it fun. We have to make it engaging, and help them understand that by engaging in these better outdoor ethics, they're going to keep, it's a part of conservation, and it's going to keep the activity more enjoyable over the long haul.
I like that long lens and that long view in terms of how you're talking about it. Chris, do you have some ideas here of what you're seeing that might be working in your area?
Yeah, I certainly can also speak to and confirm on the ground that we are seeing some maybe increased issues, and some of it I look at it as maybe two big reasons. It's kind of a numbers game to begin with. Certainly, just a greater volume of people out there, on trails, for example, is just by percentage. There's going to be more issues that happen with, whether it's trespassing. In some cases, new snowmobilers, for example, might be treading in areas that that are off trail that they shouldn't have been. We've seen that to an extent. Some of that's just a lack of education. They're new at the sport. They maybe don't know how important that's been. We've had situations where, our groomed fat bike trails, we welcome hikers on them, but we ask that they have snowshoes on, but have hiked in hiking boots in some cases, which lessens the experience for others. So I can confirm that, yes, there has maybe been an increase in some of those issues. It's a good issue to have, and I do think that just increased, education at the front end, that can, even an information center like ours, we can play a role in that. And when we hand that hiking map to somebody, or that snowmobile trail map, we can add those things. But I also see, in working with the Office of Outdoor Education at that state level, is going to be, I think, really useful to help further train and educate this new breed of outdoor enthusiasts, as well as those that have been in the outdoor game for some time. So I do see the Office of Outdoor Recreation being a pretty big component in terms of helping with that type of education, because it helps make these great assets that we have sustainable. And we want our landowners, we're fortunate to have a lot of public land up in our neck of the woods to use, but we want the land managers to be, happy with the way that we're using the land, and also the private landowners when that comes into play, to want to continue to do that. And for that, there needs to be that education that's going to be so crucial, I think, moving forward.
Right, right. Good feedback. We did see some of this early on too, when we saw some of the state parks close. And so we did create the COVID-19 toolkit that was downloadable posters and social media messages to encourage people to get outside and remind outdoor recreational users of how to do that in a safe way. But I know Lindsay has some information on this topic too. Do you want to share some information, Lindsay?
Sure. Yeah. And this is such an important one, right? Because I think from ORR's perspective, there's plenty of places to get outside, but some of them just get more concentrated than others. And so working on spreading people out on public lands is something that we're kind of building into our advocacy work. And there's some other great campaigns and coalitions that have formed over the last year. Worth mentioning too, the Recreate Responsibly Coalition, which was a big effort by agencies and nonprofits and businesses to come together to sort of handle some of these surges in recreation, especially around mask wearing and stuff like that. So I think we'll continue to see increased education campaigns and efforts that are kind of across the spectrum being implemented as a positive effort. And then on the business side of things, I mean, obviously there's these huge surges. All of the companies want to maintain these new outdoors people. And so making sure that they have a good experience in this first year is really key. So there's a lot of effort happening on the business side within the RV industry to create trainings and information to deal with your wastewater and be able to do that properly and ensure that people have a good experience with their RV. The same thing's happening on the boating and hunt and fish side. There's been a long-standing effort on the R3 side in hunting especially, but everybody's looking at these trends and going, okay, how do we keep these people around? How do we make sure that recreation is still the thing that they're going to prioritize and make sure they have a great experience and turn into lifelong outdoors people.
Right. And we've seen too from our partners at REI, the Recreate Responsibly campaign, you've seen some of your ORR members really get behind that educational piece too.
Mary, if I may, one piece that I should have mentioned earlier is the local businesses that are our dealers and our retailer network are key partners in this as well.
Right.
They're the local expert. We cherish those relationships, and they're our biggest sources of distribution and information. So keeping great relationships with our retailer network is really important to us as well. And it's great to see the office partnering with retailers as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So as we're all talking about getting into the outdoors and the experiences we've had that we like to do, what we've shared with our family and friends, we've talked about being inclusive and making sure we're being inclusive. So Bob, would you mind speaking to Trek's equity programs with NICA and the Trek team to address inclusion in the outdoors?
Sorry, DEI is a challenge in the cycling industry. I mean, the cycling industry is principally white, and it's principally male in terms of its participants. And so what do? Trek actually was founded in Waterloo, Wisconsin in 1976 by the Burke family. Today, it's principally owned by its employees, but still privately held and still led by the Burke family. And the ethos is really those to whom much is given, much is required. So what are some of the things that we can do to make cycling more inclusive and more diverse, and get more people from different populations and hopefully underserved populations involved in the sport, and get more women involved in the sport? So some of the things that we've done, a bike share system, for example, my experience at B-Cycle, bike share systems put high quality bikes in urban environments that are there to serve everybody, including the underserved. And one thing we've learned is that if you put in place engagement programs with bike share systems in cities like Milwaukee, where they have the bubbler bike share system. You can drive uptake from some of the underserved communities. Trek hosts the World Cup cyclocross race, and a couple of years ago we announced that women and men would be getting the same prize money for the same level of success in the races. We do a lot of work with NICA. So for those of you who don't know, NICA is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. It is a youth development, youth mountain biking program that has grown up pretty rapidly over the last 12 years or so. But it, again, like it reflects cycling. And so cycling is predominantly white, and NICA participation is predominantly white, because for a teenage kid participating in a mountain bike league, there are barriers if you're not from a middle class or upper middle class background. You have to have a mountain bike, you have to get to the venue, you have to have somebody to get you to the venue. So what can we do to remove some of those barriers? And Trek recently implemented the NICA Pathfinder Scholarship, which is basically sponsoring 250 kids from underrepresented backgrounds all over the United States, including Wisconsin, to help get them on mountain bikes and help get them involved in NICA by giving them, the successful recipients, giving them a bike, giving them the kit so that they have the right clothes to wear and they look like the other kids, and giving them a fee stipend so that they actually can pay the admission fees for a lot of the events. Another thing that Trek has done is we founded Dream Bikes. There are Dream Bikes locations in Madison and Milwaukee, and Dream Bikes is kind of like a Goodwill store for bikes, but it's more than that. So people donate their old bikes to Dream Bikes. Dream Bikes in turn partners with the Boys and Girls Club Job Ready program, and we bring in high school kids and we teach them how to work in a retail environment. So if a kid is mechanically inclined, we teach him or her how to fix a bike. If they're quantitatively inclined, we teach him or her how to do the inventory control. If they are extroverts, we teach them how to work on the sales floor, or all of the above, with the idea that what we want to convey to those kids is a safe environment to go to after school and learn, but also to understand that there's more to life beyond high school. So principal goal of that program is to get those kids out of the Dream Bikes program after high school and on to whatever comes next in their lives: college, the military, a trade, whatever makes sense for that young man or young woman, which we hope all of those programs together will help drive diversity and equity in cycling. It remains a challenge for this sport, but we are definitely focused on it. And I think, with the Office of Outdoor Recreation and kind of cross-pollination between outdoor activities, because I know there are many outdoor activities aimed at the underrepresented communities, perhaps working together, we can build on that success.
That is great. Thank you for your generosity as a company to make sure that you are being inclusive. I think that's really to be commended. We have about 2 minutes left before we have to wrap up. I wanted to hand it back over to Lindsay. We won't have time to talk about some of the other topics that we discussed, like Land and Water Conservation Fund. There's so many things we could discuss. But did you want to wrap up with any parting words before we go?
Sure, and I can piggyback on the equity side of things. I think, we all have a tremendous responsibility to create more access on public lands, and we've seen that be more important than ever this year, in the past year, especially as governors shut down travel and people didn't have access to parks or green space. Over 100 million Americans didn't have that access. So I think as we think about growing recreation, making sure people have a way to, experience the park that leads them to wanting to ride the bike, that leads them to becoming a camper, a mountain biker, or whatever it is, making sure all of those on-ramps are in place. And as we also think about, just the force that recreation is as an economic driver in the country and how much that is growing, with 3.3% of all US employees now working in this sector. We have a really great opportunity to diversify the workforce and the pipeline on that side too. And so I think, you know, we're going to see a lot of effort with the new administration, when the service corps and in some of the talent pipelines through, you know, high school trades, people who are not normally looking at the recreation sector for jobs. There's going to be a ton of opportunities. So I think these state offices are so important because there's so much coordination that can happen between the states and the federal side. And there's just tons of best practices across the country that we can look at and emulate, and all be working on building these very place-based and culturally specific recreation economies.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much, Lindsay Davis, Chris Ruckdashel, Sharon Scott, and Bob Burns, for participating in the Wisconsin Governor's Council Conference on Tourism. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.